Well, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Canadian Football Fanatics YouTube channel. And thanks to everybody for tuning in to another video here on the CFF platform. We got a good one today, folks. A little bit of a unique one, not quite a podcast episode, but we're going to be joined by a guest. We're going to be joined by one Nik Kowalski, manager of digital media for the BC Lions. They have been in the headlines this offseason with all the additions, moves, trades that have been made, and then with the season 3 of Arrow Up releasing last Monday. Episodes 1 and 2 released. Fantastic as always. Went with a little bit of a different approach this year on kind of focusing in on 3 specific players as well as telling the story of the past season. So excited to chat about Nik with that one, as well as personally ask him a little bit about kind of his beginnings in media and getting started with certain thing I'm kind of interested in, excited to ask him about, nikkowalski.com. Nik's kind of blog and kind of where he put, basically his resume on display, some of his work in videography and whatnot on there. And hadn't actually known about that until I did a little bit of research for the show today. I'd previously, in talking with Nik before, I know he'd mentioned he had kind of started out in a similar position to us, but I didn't have any idea that he, had a website and stuff like that, and saw that he was, working for TSN, the Winnipeg station. I forget what, 1260, I believe. And then with the blogs, he wasn't only writing CFL stuff, he was doing some NFL stuff and doing some really cool stuff that I was learning about through researching for this video here today. So excited to have Nik on here in just a few moments. Before we get to Nik, a few reminders, thank yous, all the good stuff. We just released Javon Katoy episode 34 of the podcast here on CFF. Had a great time, chatting with Javon, learning more about his story. And it's been, I think, pretty good received so far. Released that a few days ago as of this recording. By the time this is coming out, it might be around a week since we released that now. But if you haven't had the chance, go check that out right now. Javon's story is a very unique one and a very inspiring one to hear. And I would recommend it. I know I'm obviously biased, but definitely excited to hopefully have Javon back on again and talk more and learn more about his journey, because there was some stuff, like I said, on the episode with Javon that I would still like to ask him and wasn't able to fit in that episode. So if you guys haven't, go check that out. Comment down below, like the video as always. And if you guys are tuning into this one, comment down below. First of all, comment down below, give Nik his flowers on season 3 of Arrow Up releasing, because it is fantastic so far. And the BC Lions are second to none. And even, approaching, and I wouldn't even say approaching, they've been kind of at or near, NFL levels. And, I know Arrow Up's kind of been compared to, Hard Knocks, and now with this approach to a style of like quarterback receiver, um, very, very high quality stuff. And just like I said, comment down below, give Nik his flowers and the rest of the team over with the BC Lions. Also, comment down below about some potential guests that you guys would like to see on not only the podcast, that we have some phenomenal guests already lined up and recorded waiting to be released, but maybe we could also do some more stuff like this with Nik. I know Liam Thompson works for the BC Lions. Could be another interesting guest that we could have on and just hear his perspective from, I think what we're going to call this is like maybe behind the lens or behind the camera, something like that. This little feature with Nik Kowalski here. So, yeah, let's maybe lastly, like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe, folks. And when you guys subscribe, please press the notification bell, and you guys get notified every single time we go live or upload any sort of content like this, or any of our YouTube shorts from our clips from our podcast series as well. So make sure you guys are subscribed, make sure you guys are pressing the notification bell so you guys can get all the notifications. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. We are on Instagram at Canadian Football Fanatics, and we are on Twitter at _CF Fanatics. So I think that is everything, folks. Blake should be joining me for this one as well. So Blake will be joining me as well to have on Nik Kowalski. So let's send it over to the Nik Kowalski video right now. Alrighty, Fanatics, joining me for the second time, two-time guest, one Nik Kowalski. Nik, thanks for joining me, buddy. How you doing?
Yes, sir. Glad to be back, Cole. Doing well. Doing really busy right now. I know everybody talks to this about this being our off season, but we'll get into it in a little bit. But we're still chipping away with Arrow up and all that, and re-signings, all these other news announcements too. So it's been a busy. I can't. I don't even say it feels like an off season for us yet. So we're chipping away. The Lions are busy as always.
You beat me to it. I was gonna say, man, I've been asking, Javon, how's his off season been? I feel like you guys have been just back to the grind, basically. Probably a little bit of. I know you were able to go home during the holidays. I believe was that good to kind of go home and see the family and whatnot?
Yeah, I went back home to Winnipeg for about 10 days over the Christmas break. So that was kind of my little break. So that counts as definitely a break from the workload. But I think I've officially hit that point. I've lived in Vancouver now for 3 years, and officially this past winter, when I went back to Winnipeg, I felt the cold. The snow shocked me, so I feel like I'm kind of like adapted to that Pacific lifestyle now. And I tell us all the time, people out here don't know how good they have it for as far as Canada goes, because the weather here is incredible. It feels like a different country compared to like the prairies or really anywhere else. It feels like Alberta's bad too, right?
You're a West Coaster now, Nick.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it, it sounds like. But anyways, buddy, like I was saying off camera, there were some things that I was interested to pick your brain about and hearing about kind of your journey into the CFL and whatnot, as well as I know chatting about Arrow Up in a little bit as well and hearing about kind of. I've been curious to hear about kind of how it originated and kind of some of those stories as well, and we'll get into that shortly, but. Nick, there's probably some viewers and listeners of mine that maybe aren't as familiar with you, but I believe your specific title is like digital manager, digital media for the BC Lions. But if you don't mind, maybe just letting the people know that maybe aren't familiar with, like, I know you grew up in Winnipeg. Just introduce yourself a little bit and kind of what you do for the BC Lions.
Yeah, of course. My title is a digital manager or digital media manager of the BC Lions. So what that pretty much entails is that if you see a video on the Lions YouTube, their website, social media, I either probably had a hand in either shooting it, editing it, producing it, overseeing it, or some kind of combination of those things. So it's not just myself, obviously, that works in the video department. We have Liam Thompson who helps out. We've luckily been able to bring on freelancers the past couple of years. So shout out to guys like Marcus and Kyle, Taylor. These are the guys that again are kind of behind the scenes, but if you see a game recap from a Lions home game or Touchdown Pacific or what have you, these guys' shots are included in it. They're top-notch people. So we built a good team out here. We're trying to move the needle here out in BC with the Lions. It's something I've been very passionate about. I know you said you want to go a little further back into my past, but my past has always been the CFL. It's been a league I grew up on. Very stereotypical Winnipegger. The Prairies. Everybody's a fan of the Bombers or the Riders or whatever, right? So I've definitely changed my allegiances now to the Lions ever since I moved out here in 2022. But yeah, that's my day to day right now. It's video editing, a lot of planning, and then in season it becomes more shooting. Obviously, once the team's around and all of that. But it's a full time job, that's for sure. Like 12 months a year for us. It's not just the athletes now that feel like they have to be going 12 months a year. That translates to our work too.
Been with the team since 2022, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So three seasons now. I'm sure time, as I say this almost like daily. It's crazy, but like time's flying. What are maybe some memories like now that thinking back to like when you first came out here, as you said, now you're adapted to the West Coast lifestyle, going back home. It's like, man, this is paradise out here. So what are kind of like maybe a memory that pops into your head, Nick, right away?
The first time going into BC Place was pretty interesting. It was kind of one of those days where I moved here in January 2022. Mike Riley retired my first week of work. So that was a pretty big change, obviously, because I don't know if you remember, but at the time, Coach Rick Campbell said, yeah, we're rolling with Nathan Rourke. And everyone was like, what? Obviously, we know how that all turned out in the past 3 years. But The first, anyways, getting back to when I went to BC Place the first time, it was with Rick Campbell and Bo Lacumbo for a PSA commercial that they had to shoot. So it was a really high production set, government commercial that they had to be a part of. And I just, it was my first time ever in BC Place. I was just there to just watch essentially and go and check out the stadium. And I'm sure if you've been to the stadium many times, Cole, it's as big as they get in Canada. So it's pretty. Even I know a lot of our players now, when they like the first year guys that come in from America, or even the U Sports guys, like they're always shocked when they go into BC Place at its size, and it looks just as big as it is when you're on the field. So that was a memory that stood out to me. I don't know. There's been so many. Like, it's crazy to think. Like I said, Mike O'Reilly technically was the team's quarterback when I got here. The story of Nathan Rourke has developed. I mean, the Vernon Adams Jr. era, like Lucky Whitehead, Brian Burnham was here. Like, there's just so many. I mean, it's a gift and a curse because we obviously haven't achieved that championship status yet. But I mean, there's never been a shortage of storylines. That's something we've been privileged to have. You know, the good and the bad. I feel like we have to really balance that out because we're still trying to get to that championship goal. But I mean, it's been a crazy ride so far. I'm sure it's gonna keep up that craziness too as we hit the Nathan Rourke era again.
So let's go back, like I said, let's take a little let's go back a little bit anyways, Nick, to your Winnipeg days. And I
Yes.
know there's probably a lot of Lions fans listening to this and whatnot, so they might want to be covering their ears right now. But I believe you were let's maybe just say a Blue Bomber supporter back when you lived back home. Is that correct or no? That's correct, isn't it?
Oh, I was a diehard Blue Bombers fan back in the day. I went to every
So
single
so
game,
I'm
season
curious,
tickets,
Nick.
all of that.
What was 2019 and 2021 like for you before coming out here, ending the 30-year drought? I have a good buddy from Winnipeg who, him and his dad, when they found out the Bombers were making it, they drove to Calgary, made sure that they were there to witness something like that. As you, a diehard fan, what are your memories of seeing that happen and, back to back essentially?
Yeah, 2019 was a pretty cool experience for me because at that time I was in university. I mean, I was just a fan at that point. I was blogging just out of passion. Didn't have any allegiances to anyone else at the time, right? So like, and that came out of nowhere, right? Like that whole season was crazy. Like Hamilton was 15-3 that year. That's what they beat in the Grey Cup, and the Winnipeg was the 3 seed, so they had to go on the road and beat Calgary. They had to go on the road and beat Saskatchewan. Matt Nichols obviously gets hurt for them. Zach Collaros gets traded there, which just starts the butterfly effect of that. Is just crazy, right? So, I mean, it's actually interesting. So, in 2019, the game was obviously on a Sunday. So I think it was like November 29th or something like that. The college program I was in, they do like work placements. So I had requested to go to TSN 1290 for my work placement, which was the Winnipeg TSN station that no longer exists. So I got the work placement, and of course, my first day is the day after the Grey Cup, and I was looking at that in advance, and I'm thinking about it like, oh, I don't know if Winnipeg will ever be there, right? So Winnipeg gets to the Grey Cup, and then suddenly my close friend group is like, oh, we're driving to Calgary, and we're going to the game, and I'm like, crap, I can't go. Like, and of course, I made the right decision to stay back. They all drove to Calgary, went to the game, had the time of their lives, and seeing the Bombers win the Grey Cup. I watched it with another friend group at a friend's house. I ended up going downtown after, but my work placement with TSN 1290 started the day after the Grey Cup. So 48 hours into my work placement, I was covering the parade with Darren Bombing of TSN 1290 at the time. So it's just crazy to think about all the things that have happened since then. 2021, I was there in Hamilton, but I was working, so it was completely different capacity. Darren Bombing, who left TSN 1290 after they shut down, and right after my internship there, my work placement, he started Bonfire Sports. So in 2021, he pretty much was like, hey, I need like a Robin to my Batman. So pretty much what I did for him was I pretty much ran his social media accounts for the Bonfire Sports. I chimed in on camera a little bit, but I pretty much filmed him doing hits, interviewed a lot of players, miscellaneous content at that. We got in the locker room actually after the game in 2021. So we interviewed Stanley Bryant, I remember, in the locker room. And Darren, I can't remember the exact question, but Darren just kind of said, like, how does this feel, Stanley? Like, you're a back-to-back champion. And he just kind of like started breaking down into tears. And to me, I was like, my first thought was, oh, Stanley's like this could be the end of the road for him, right? Like, he's going out a champ, going out maybe the best ever offensive lineman in CFL history. It's crazy that he's still playing now. So that's just a kudos to the, longevity of Stanley. But yeah, just some crazy memories in there. And then at that time in 2021, I ran into Matt Baker in Hamilton. And I had applied actually for this. I don't know if many people know this, but I had applied to the job I'm in right now back in 2021. They went with somebody else who had definitely more experience than me. It was local. And then in 2022, we circled back because that person had left. And these conversations, really, the reason why I bring this up is these conversations really picked up in that 2021 Grey Cup. So, and if you remember too, that season was like, this is a long-winded answer, sorry, but
No, hey, keep going. I was waiting for stories like this, honestly.
So that 2021 season, that was the COVID year, right? So it started in August. The Grey Cup was December 12th, which is late, obviously. And so when I got back home to Winnipeg, after talking with Matt, I pretty much had a conversation with, at the time, Carolyn Cody and Matt Baker. And it was pretty much like, hey, do you want this job? Are you ready do you want to move out to Vancouver? And I know I've lived my whole life in Winnipeg. I was 24 years old at the time, and I was like, yeah, screw it, let's do it. Like, it's been a dream of mine to work for a CFL team. Like I said, very passionate about this league, all of that, right? So 3 weeks later, found a place, accepted the job, drove out here with my car, packed. I have a little Hyundai hatchback, so I packed that thing to the brim. I don't think you could have fit a freaking penny more or like a coin or whatever. It was packed so much. But I made it work, and no regrets. Obviously, that's something I try to preach to people now who are looking for advice in this industry. Is that, like, I was very comfortable at home. Like I said, was cheering for Winnipeg and all of that back in the day, going to games. Like, where I was I got a good full-time job too, not in the sports industry. And then I was like, this is just a sign to, take that risk to move and start a new career. And it's like we were talking off the top, all the memories that have happened just in these last 3 years. It's pretty crazy to imagine, being at this spot now, but it's been a dream. Like, this organization, it's just as good as everyone says from the outside. It's been a dream to work for a CFL team, and I don't know. I didn't think in a million years it'd be for the BC Lions, but I'm so happy it was, and very happy to be a part of all this. So that's kind of my story of how I got here.
It was the best decision you ever made to stay home that 2019 Grey Cup, buddy. But
No
like I said,
kidding.
those are the stories I love to hear. I'm a big fan of Darren. Had him on the platform many times. I really respect what he does and does very well at a high level, covering the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the CFL even a little bit as well. Thinking back to that, Nick, were you kind of just like very wide-eyed and like, because like I know you and Matt have mentioned a little bit when you came over to the Lions and kind of like that first of like being in the locker room and around, like you said, Stanley Bryan and stuff like that, you can kind of be like a little bit anxious and maybe like not fully yourself. Was that like, or did you kind of maybe notice that at the time, or were you just kind of like going with and like maybe living out your dream, I guess, in 2021?
I mean, I think I've done a pretty good job over my professional career to keep things like professional, and I mean, over my life I've been like starstruck, if that's kind of like the angle we're going at here. But at the end of the day, they're just people. I definitely learned on the fly a little bit when I first took this job. I feel very comfortable now, but at the start, yeah, there was things you had to learn, and it's the first time ever working for a pro sports team, getting this behind the curtains access and all that. Building trust, something that I really pride myself on. But yeah, like there's some cool moments. I was even talking to Bo Lacumbo last week when I told him, I was like, when I came here in 2022, like, you were one of the guys that I was jacked up to, work alongside and be able to, I mean, we're technically coworkers, but it's obviously a different relationship when they're professional athletes. But we're around these guys almost every single day, so you get to know them. You get to learn who they are off the field as well. And I mean, like, it's another thing about this organization and with Arrow Up. Like, I've had the privilege of like going in these players' homes. Like, that's something that, you know, you definitely have to have a good rapport with and good trust established. So, the way I kind of look at it though is they're just people, right? Like, they're especially in the CFL, like, these athletes are they're so personable. They're so just down to earth people, no egos involved. So that helps out a lot with, you know, never being intimidated. You know, you obviously be respectful of all the players and staff, and of course, and everybody else, coaching staff especially too, right? But they're just people, right? So, you know, treat them with respect. You know, earn their trust, and the rest should fall in place. And I think, you know, our whole marketing team, our whole department here has done a really good job with that aspect. You know, building trust, and we got to build more, obviously, with this new regime coming in.
Great answer. Let's bring in my right-hand man, Blake. Blake, thanks for joining us, buddy. How you doing?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you okay, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
What's up, Nick?
So
How you been? How's the off season?
I was just telling Cole, man, it's been busy, Blake, but you know, we're chugging along here. I got some time off coming up, but yeah, we've still been busy here, you know, with Arrow Up and all that. So, how are things with you, Blake?
Busy like always, but you know it's keeps me out of trouble during the off season, so could be
I hear
worse.
ya.
anyways, Nick, lastly, before we get into Arrow Up, what I wanted to ask you, most importantly about was nikkowalski.com, a website that you ran, I believe, kind of up until you came out here and had your blog on there and kind of had like basically like your resume, all your work on there, links to your social media and whatnot. So links to your YouTube channel, which I was checking out, some of your cool clips from like shooting in the CFL, shooting U Sports and stuff like that. What was that like? What inspired you to start that? And how much fun was that for you?
Yeah, so I actually had a blog, or it kind of started as like a blog slash Twitter account. It was titled the same name. That name no longer exists, especially the name shouldn't exist as I'm working for the BC Lions now. If that gives it away about maybe what it related to, maybe a blue and gold team. But that's how I started doing all this. I wanted to be like when I was in high school. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a sports reporter, and I've obviously pivoted into the content industry since. But that back then, that was my way of getting into this world. So I started blogging quite consistently. I've always took pride in that too, as being consistent, right? I preach that to people, is that if you're going to be a content creator, if you're going to blog, do whatever, you got to be consistent. You don't have to be the best, but if you're consistent, people will start to notice you. So I started doing that. I've since turned that into I own the NikKowalski.com. I definitely got to work on updating it. It's actually on my list this off season. I got to get a demo reel that's updated too. Because my last demo reel which is like a kind of summary of your work, is like, yeah, it's the Bisons and the U Sports and the Bombers stuff and my old job. I'm looking at it right now. Actually, I got a James Wilder hurdle up there, Gronk. So a lot of old stuff, got to update it. But yeah, these days, right? Like especially in the content industry, you don't necessarily supply your resumes, but you supply websites, you supply Instagram accounts, you supply your demo reel, right? And that's how you grab people's attention. So that's another thing is too. I'd recommend anybody get a website. Your work lives there forever. Again, I'm being a bit of a hypocrite here in the fact that I haven't updated it lately. I haven't been too consistent with that, but trust me, it's on my off-season list. And again, it's just an easy way to put your work everywhere. I mean, like you said, it dates pretty far back. I think I have some of those blog posts out there. Used to do a lot of different kind of content, TSN 1290 stuff. Like that was a good thing too about that work placement that I had, as they let me, I got to produce some actual stories or audio stories for TSN, and I still have those uploaded. So that lives forever, right? And that's something that whenever I do have or had to, put a resume out, and especially with the Lions back in the day, like when I was applying for this job, having that TSN 1290 experience was huge, right? So that's why put it on the website, lives there forever. It's kind of the new age way now of keeping your work, showing your work, all of that. So Definitely got to update it, but it still exists.
It was super cool kind of getting to do a deep dive on it, man. Going into your YouTube and seeing some of those TSN 1290 hits and stuff like that. I guess I didn't really ask you about that. What was that like for you to work at a station like that and obviously in your hometown, and being able to kind of do those hits and stuff like that and be, I'm sure, proud looking back at some of the work that you produced there.
Oh, super proud. Like I said, my journey has definitely taken a turn of what I expected it to be back when I was growing up, when I was in high school and all that, right? Like I said, I wanted to be a reporter, and I've obviously switched kind of, not industries, but switched my path for sure. But with that all said, like if I didn't do that TSN 1290 work placement, if I didn't get a journalism degree, if I didn't get I got a journalism diploma, sorry, communications degree, if I didn't do any of that, I wouldn't have, there's no chance I'm here right now. So it was all worthwhile, despite the fact that I'm not a journalist. Like I still have that diploma. I got all these networking opportunities. But like with TSN 1290, that was a dream come true, right? I was unfortunately the last intern there ever because they shut down in the spring after I was there. But to meet guys or work with guys like Darren Bombing, Andrew Hustler Patterson, I got to meet him. Troy Westwood was there. Rack Carney was kind of the executive director, producer there, and he told me, I was so raw at that time, especially like I didn't want to be in radio necessarily. I just wanted to be with TSN. Like that was what was driving me to request that work placement. But they taught me a lot. Like even when there's some of those audio stories that are that are still on my site, I had to produce it and pretty much send drafts to and work with this guy named Rack Carney, who pretty much he told me stuff that I never would, or he showed me stuff on Adobe Audition that I never knew existed. I remember I still use some of these techniques and like stuff like hard limiters. I didn't even know what that was, and like that's something I use every single day when I'm editing now. So, I mean, valuable to like I'm big on networking, so that was something that definitely became quite prominent in my time at TSN 1290. It was only 3 weeks, but try to make every day like the best day. Like I remember there was one day where I was like, hey, like I don't really got much to do, and they were like why don't, when I was just, they had no ideas for me, so I was like, you guys have like a calendar of like the Jets and Moose games, like the Manitoba Moose? And they're like, no. So I just literally got an Excel and made them a calendar that they put up in their office, like of just so they have all the Winnipeg Jets and Manitoba Moose game dates. So like, I don't know.
Nick, take your finger off the bottom of your phone.
Oh, sorry. All good now?
Yeah, you're good.
I thought that was me. I was like, what just happened?
No,
That's a rookie move here.
Been there before. I'll just say
it's
that.
A rookie move. But yeah, I don't know if you caught that, but like, yeah, like I remember one day I like built them a calendar just because there was just nothing else to do, right? And just listen to them recording live and seeing how that experience all works. They had the rights to the time too for the Winnipeg Jets games on the radio, so I remember I stayed back one evening just to watch, how they all put the show together, right? Like how they cut clips for the intermissions and how they cut to different, like, because they were at the station, the producers, but the talent and the play-by-play guys were at the rink, right? So how that process all worked. So like it was such a cool experience, and just it's unfortunate that those stations don't exist anymore. I know even TSN, like there's ties to the Vancouver aspect now that like Matt Baker was part of the TSN Vancouver when they shut down, right? So and it's sad that those stations no longer exist. I know Hamilton there was 3 of them that day that shut down, to Hamilton, Winnipeg, and Vancouver. But and from my experience, like it was such an awesome experience, and I still when I went back to Winnipeg over the holidays, I went out for lunch with Darren Bombing. So like still stay in touch with those guys whenever, like Hustler Patterson, see him at the Grey Cup all the time, say hi. Michael Remes, another guy that was there. They work together now with Winnipeg Sports Talk. So still a lot of connections there. Yeah, just grateful for it all.
We can't discuss TSN 1040 around Blake too long. You might get too upset. But Blake, or excuse me, Nick, thank you for sharing a little bit of nuggets about your past, man. I was interested to kind of pick your brain on some of the, your beginnings in the industry and whatnot. So let's move on to what we wanted to have you on here, and that is Arrow I'm curious before we get into season 3 home turf. What was your pitch like to start this and have, I believe that first season, like you were in the war room draft during the draft and stuff like that, and like cameras in the locker room, and a lot of coaches probably wouldn't, let that fly and just like the privacy of the locker room and even a war room of drafting players going on and stuff like that. And you're behind the scenes with a camera in there producing this for, fans, not only the BC Lions, but the CFL as well. I'm curious, you must be a good pitch man, and just tell us like behind the scenes of kind of approaching the BC Lions about wanting to do this idea.
Well, a lot of it goes back to, Matt Baker and Carolyn Cody. When I first joined here, I said those are two people that I was in touch with before I accepted this job, and those are two people. Carolyn Cody is our director of marketing, right? So she has a lot of influence in terms of what we're allowed to do, and so we kind of pitched the idea for a docu-series together, and let Matt and Carolyn Cody kind of deal with, Coach Rick Campbell, GM Neil McAvoy. And again, it goes back to building that trust, right? So at the time, I was a brand new guy, and a lot of what I was doing in terms of this like behind the scenes access was kind of as Matt Baker as my right hand man, almost like he's almost like escorting me around to kind of be like, hey, this guy's cool, and you can trust this guy. But yeah, sometimes you have to take a step back and be like, wow, like you'll see a lot of this stuff in Arrow Up, but like the raw emotion that you in the locker room, like I have the privilege to be there, and that it speaks to Rick Campbell too, right? Like he allowed us to capture these moments, and there was little, if no times that we were ever told to shut the camera off or whatever, right? So, but I think that all goes back to this having their trust, coaches, players, all of that. But yeah, at the start, Arrow Up was just, hey, let's just do it behind the scenes docu-series, and it's grown so much in the past 3 years too. I'm really proud of that. Like the quality for itself, it's night and day. I mean, that's one of those things where I think you can tell that I was super raw at the time. I also didn't have Liam Thompson yet. He joined the summer of 2022, and having him on board has just been massive. Like we pretty much tag team all this stuff. He's been a major part of this too. But and then the name of Arrow Up, we actually disclosed this in the first season, and you may see a bit of the Arrow Up name's origin in the end of home turf, but it was a Rick Campbell thing. So Carolyn Cody, we were trying to figure out a name for it, and Carolyn Cody was like, well, I was talking with Coach Rick, and he was saying like he uses this Arrow Up mantra, and it's about just creating positive momentum, like every single day getting a little better, right? Like that 1% better kind of thing. Like the little victories eventually will build up to be, major victories and get us to that championship aspiration that I was talking about earlier. So I love the name. I think it makes a lot of sense when you hear it, and now I think it's just now we've established it, right? In the past 3 years, people know what it is when you hear it. And the CFL has been a great help too, especially these past couple of weeks. They've been all in to support the series however we need them to, and they've been great to work with too from a league level. So that's been super helpful. But that's where it's gone, and this year we've definitely evolved it into the home turf series, which is a new wrinkle in the whole Arrow Up series.
Yeah, Nick, I just had a
so
question
let's
for you. Like you
okay,
said
go
that
ahead, Blake.
you get like the behind the scenes, and like one of the fondest memories I have of Arrow Up is in the first season, like after the Lions lost to Winnipeg, unfortunately in the West Final, and you kind of captured a moment between Brian Burnham and Nathan Rourke. Like Nathan, of course, left to the NFL for a little bit. He's back now, of course, and Brian retired after that. Like that was such a special moment for the both of them. And like in the moment, you kind of know that something special is going on, or are you just there with your camera and whatever happens, happens?
Great question, Blake. So that is a prime example of the importance of a guy like Liam. So that shot, the video shot that you see on the field of Nathan and Brian, that's Liam. So Liam's shooting that, and he's using his judgment to capture that moment, and it's a great moment too, right? Like I know Vernon was around there too, consoling Nathan. James Butler, TJ Lee, all those guys were out there. I remember that we captured footage of, and we later disclosed that, or we later talked to Brian and Nathan, sat them down, and they revealed that Nathan got so emotional in that moment because Brian had told him that he was calling it a career, right? But where Liam and I work as a team, where that comes all into play is that while Liam's on the field there, I was in the locker room getting ready to kind of get Rick's speech and all that, Coach Rick's final speech of the season. And that's when Brian Burnham told the team behind closed doors, the whole team, which you can go look in there or go watch it in the Arrow Up episode, that he was retiring. So it was just one of those moments where, I kind of believe by the mantra that you can never have too much footage on a game day. Like, if you never know what you're going to need, or you never know when moments are going to happen, or you can always delete stuff afterwards. So, that's kudos to Liam to be able to capture that moment on the field. I mean, that's a historic moment, right? It's the last time Brian Burnham has ever played a football game, right? And then in the locker room too. That's a moment where I'm proud of. The only thing I wasn't proud of is I was on the wrong lens. I was in that moment. I still had my game shooting lens on, which is like a longer 70 to 200 millimeter, which in a locker room is pretty tight. Like, you want to have a wider lens on. And now over my years, I've been able to kind of plan ahead, or just be able to switch lenses on the fly a little quicker, to be versatile in terms of what kind of angles and everything. But that's one of those times where I still had my long lens on, and I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna try and lean back and make the shot as wide as possible, and try and zone in on Brian's face and make sure the audio is good, and then we're on our way.
So let's talk about Home Turf, which released last Monday, episode 1 and 2. I heard you mentioned earlier you got, I believe, episodes 3 and 4 working behind you there. Tell the people a little bit about kind of what they, I guess, should expect from this upcoming season, and just how excited you guys are, I know, to produce this season specifically.
Yeah, so what I've been telling people about Arrow Up Home Turf, kind of like the elevator pitch, is that it's pretty much follows the lives of 3 players, and we tell the story of the 2024 BC Lions through these 3 players. And those 3 players are Sean White, TJ Lee, and David Mackey. And we strategically chose all 3 of them. Started this process last March. And again, that started with a pitch, obviously, to them, because in that pitch, we were like, hey, like, we want to capture your off-season story. We want to get your wives involved, or your families, in TJ's aspect, because he has 3 kids. And we kind of laid out what we were hoping to get with it, the commitment it would take on their end. And the first steps were kind of just, hey, like, let's get some off-season visits. It's like, we got to come to your home kind of thing, like, just coming right on in. And all 3 guys have been fabulous to work with. They all have 3 super integral players to this team. I know Sean and TJ got a lot of credit, but a guy like Dave is, he's arguably like the team captain. A lot of guys will say that, actually, not arguably, he is. Guy's got drafted here in I shouldn't know, off the top of my head. I think it was 2018. It might have been 2017. I think it was 2018. So he's been here his whole career. Was it 17?
17. That's what he said in Arrow Up.
17. Okay. Well, you got look at that. Like, you got me beat. I'm the one who made it. But yeah, so 3 super important players, and very proud of it. It definitely follows the model of, and its inspiration was the Netflix quarterback and receiver series. That's kind of the way I feel like sports content, especially the long form, is trending right now. And there are like, we make this in house, right? So there are some hurdles in terms of that aspect, right? But again, we have that trust. We have the final say. We produce it. So it's pretty raw. Like, if you watch it, like, it's not like we hold anything back. It's uncensored. That's a big thing that's different. Obviously, we put it on our YouTube page, and put the viewer discretion up that you're gonna see some coarse language, and you do throughout this series. And it's not just, like I said, it's about TJ, Sean, and David, but it's also about the whole season that the Lions had. So obviously you can't tell the 2024 BC Lions story without Vernon Adams Jr. and Nathan O'Rourke. So that whole segment or series or storyline is told through, David, Sean, and TJ's perspective, but we also sat down Vernon, we sat down Nathan, player coaches like Grant Phillips, Coach Tanya Henderson, Mike Benavides, then other teammates too, Gary Peters, Matthew Betts, Will Stanback, Riley Pickett. These guys are all involved too. So, I think just off this thought, like, please check this out. Like, I don't think any other team is producing this kind of work right now. I would love to see other teams do this. I actually have had people from other marketing or video departments reach out to me to say, hey, like, we're exploring this. So that's exciting to hear. But it's a lot of work. But whenever anybody says, like, why do you do it, kind of thing, I just say because I love it. So the support's been great. But yeah, we still it's exciting to have it out, and we're still in the process of it. It's going to conclude on February 3rd, but we're kind of just putting the final touches on the final episodes here, and off we go.
So I know you guys, well, you specifically are very humble, and will probably, not like to acknowledge some of the compliments, but it's been said a lot of times of like comparing to Hard Knocks, and I know you mentioned of this year kind of being like a quarterback receiver, a little bit of comparison. When you look at those, and like those are produced by like HBO, and I know quarterback receiver of like Netflix, I think Peyton Manning and Omaha Productions or whatever behind those series. And as you guys mentioned, like everything you guys do is in house. How much pride do you take into that people compare what you guys produce to stuff that is produced by HBO and Omaha Productions and top tier production companies? And just like I said, I know you're going to be very humble about this, but just you should take a lot of pride in the work you guys have been putting out for the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of like a two-faced answer from me in terms of, one, like, I want to be humble because in my humble opinion, we're not at that level yet of the HBO and all of that. And when I watch their shows, I'm in awe of the production or the quality that they produce, and it's just that's the standard, right? NFL Films, HBO, all of that, Hard Knocks. But it means a lot that people, compare it and resemble it, our production to that. That's the highest compliment for me. So at the same time, I am super proud of the work we do. I do think the quality has gone up tremendously these last 3 years. Our team is growing. And that's not just with experience either. Like, after my first season, we wanted to get an upgrade on our cameras. And as most people know, cameras aren't cheap. So that was something that we had to get in a marketing budget for the upcoming season. And we were told the camera that we asked for, we got. And in fact, we got 2 of them because Liam got his. So I have one and now Liam has one. We have the same camera, Sony A7S3s. They're great cameras. They're not cheap either. So it's taken a buy-in from the organization too, right? That's something that Carolyn Cody oversees. Has to budget, and then it goes all the way up, obviously, to the top with Mr. Amar Doman. So there's been a lot of buy-in there, and that's something I'm trying to strive now for, is to get to that Hard Knocks quality with all of this, and see where we can go with the future and of this show and all the other content that we produce. And at the same time, though, I think what I just preach is that you just got to put in the work, right? And that's something that over having 3 years of experience now, I think my quality of work has obviously gone up just naturally with having experience. But if you have that work ethic in place, and I think I've maintained that since I started here, and that's something that I told myself, I promised myself I would. But that's something that I think makes this possible, right? And it's not just, again, like I've been saying, it's not just me. Like, Liam's been grinding away at this. We have people behind the scenes like Jordan, who's been he's our game day director and manager, but he's been helping me produce this show too, and he's been super helpful. Like our whole marketing team, like we have to get graphics made, right? So there's people like Hillary, Janelle, Carter on our graphics team that make the graphics for us. Cody oversees the kind of the marketing side of things. So it takes team effort. Like I say in house, and yeah, our crew is a lot smaller than an NFL Films crew, but it still takes a team to even get our show off too, right? So definitely proud of everything, and I the support means a lot that I get, and people messaging and all that. But I mean, a lot of people deserve credit too.
Keep on going on. Keep on going on. You guys are doing fantastic stuff, Nick. I'm curious with going into the players' homes and whatnot and stuff like that. Probably learning stuff that maybe you didn't know about the three specific players that are featured in this. What's maybe something that you can let us know that maybe you didn't know about TJ, Mackey, and Whitey? Why I ask this is me specifically. I didn't know Whitey used to be jacked when he was younger because the little picture there of working in Chris Boyko's gym back in the day, I was like, man, Whitey was cut. Was there anything that jumps to mind, like maybe something you learned about the three of them that you didn't know before?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what that would be. I don't really have anything off the top of my head. What would I say? I mean, like TJ's kids are fantastic. Maddox, Mila, Mason, they're all in Arrow Up home turf. But what would come to mind? Because the thing is, like when we pitch these players, like we have topics that we want to hit, right? So I knew that Dave was the strength and conditioning coach for the University of Western. So that's something that we wanted to cover when I went to London last spring. I mean, their wives are great. That's another thing I didn't know. Obviously, I had to build meet them essentially. I believe I had met Sean's wife before, Rana, but you see like why they all make perfect couples. Like without Brittany Lee, TJ's wife, like he talks about this, that I don't know if he has that level of perseverance, right? When TJ suffered his Achilles, Brittany, his wife, is the one setting up those physiotherapy appointments, like telling him like, hey, we're gonna get through this, being a mother to their three kids. Rana and Sean met what Sean would call as one of his darkest points in his life. Rana got him out of that, right, to the point that he's at now. So that's something that maybe qualifies as something that I didn't know. I didn't know that Sean and Rana met on a dating app. But you see why they're so perfect for each other, right? They have so many laughs, and they're always joking around with each other, and it's that. But you can tell it's a true love there. And then with Joanne and Dave, like they're kind of like the same person. Like they're workaholics, and they love their jobs. They support each other so well, and that's what makes them work. And I think we do a good job at showing that aspect of everything, right? So yeah, like we went into it with a plan, but yeah, you learn things too, right? Once everything starts to happen, and then obviously throughout the season, stuff changes, right? Like Dave Mackey becomes the short yardage quarterback, and that's a big change, right? Sean White goes on this field goal streak. TJ Lee's makes his return from an Achilles. He throws on a guardian cap mid-season. That's something that we get into. Sean as a kid, so like that was something we knew was coming, obviously, but we don't know what kind of father Sean's going to be like until that happens, and which you'll see in the final 2 episodes. So, I mean, yeah, it kind of puts it into perspective when you talk a lot about it, about like all the off the field things we tried to capture, and I mean, we bit off as much as we could chew, that's for sure. Found that out these last couple of months in the editing process. So. And as the last 4 episodes come out of this, you'll see like what I'm talking about here. But yeah, the first 2, I think you mentioned Call at the Top, they're out now. It's all off-field stuff, right? Like there's 1 football game total in the first 2 episodes. So really trying to show these people as people and not just football players.
I gotta say sorry Blake, before you go, I gotta say I enjoyed Whitey's reaction to the pink football being kicked and him having a girl and just saying, I gotta go drink. But Blake, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, Nick, I was just gonna say, like, as fans, like, you kind of know this because you're around the team a lot more than we are, but, like, as fans, we don't realize more so the sacrifice that the wives kind of make. Like, Joanne and Dave, for example, they live halfway across the country during football season. Like, Joanne stays there in London, and Dave comes here to BC. Brittany and TJ, like, they live in Blaine, Washington. Like, it's literally the city across the border, but they are technically separated by a border during the football season. And it's like, man, like, we know this as fans, like, during the season that these are real people, but this series especially shows us that, like, these guys are away from their family. Like, they're doing this for our enjoyment. Yeah, they get paid some money, but, like, they're doing this for us, and it takes a lot for them to do that.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Blake. Like, Dave Mackey is, in football season, he's pretty much in a long-term relationship. He does not physically see his wife for months, that's something that you have to manage as a professional athlete, right? And it's kind of for everybody too. When we go to Kamloops, right? Like, we're kind of isolated in our dorms for almost a month, like staff, players, everybody, right? So you miss out, or not miss out, but you're not with your family 24/7, and that's why you see the importance. Even like relating to a guy like Bola Kumbo, like, that's a major reason for him retiring, that he stated, was that he just wanted to have that family time that he felt like he couldn't get, especially in the summers when the CFL season goes on, right? But yeah, in Dave's aspect, that's a storyline I've always been intrigued by it. Like, I've always thought, like, how do they manage this? And they talk every day, but they're not physically with each other for months at a time, right? And that's why, as all players, when they go back home, and for Dave, the home region is kind of like the Ontario games, the Hamilton and Toronto games in particular. It's a big deal, right? You get to see your family. I know we have a lot of guys from Quebec that when we go to play Montreal, like, that's a big deal. You get to go see your family and your friends, and you have a lot of support, and you get to go out for dinner with them the night before. So, and Dave's for Dave's storylines, we tagged along with him to Burlington the night before the Hamilton game, where he went out with Joanne and his family, his niece, and then when Joanne came out here for a couple of weeks during a bye week, which is often, I'm pretty sure that's pretty typical, that when you're on a bye week, you get to connect with your family, and usually they come see you and all that, and especially if you're living in Vancouver, your family's going to want to come out and see what the West Coast has to offer. But that's a big deal for these players when they get that time with their family and everything. So we ended up capturing I don't know if I should spoil it all, but we have a date night with Dave and Joanne. It turns into some other players are featured in it in a later episode, but she came out here for the September bye week. So yeah, it puts it into reality, right? You're with you. Like, it takes commitment from both sides essentially to make this all work.
So, Nick, I know you got to get out of here, buddy.
Yeah, no,
So, kind of wrap things up. Sorry, Blake. Lastly, just for you, Nick, thank you, first of all, for joining us. But I'm going to upload this Saturday, so 2 days from the time this is uploaded, the time you guys are seeing this, Arrow Up episodes 3 and 4 will be coming out. Why should people be tuning in? And how many more episodes after 3 and 4 can we maybe expect for Arrow Up?
Yeah, so pretty much what I was saying earlier, you should be tuning into this because it shows these players as humans. It shows, like, why they do this and what motivates them, and then at the same time you get all this behind the scenes access with the Lions organization, and puts everything into perspective, right? Like, this was a very important season for the Lions in 2024. A lot of expectations, right? And obviously the return of Nathan Rourke, even the return of Matthew Betts, like, that was something that I don't think many people I don't know, maybe I'm speaking for myself here. I didn't expect that to happen this season. Like that was shocking to me, both of them. Like I thought those guys were going to have successful careers in the NFL because I know they're capable of it. That's another whole topic we won't get into, but it was a crazy season for us, and how that all played out is in this. And if it's not even just about liking the Lions, like if you just like sports content, which I love watching this Netflix quarterback and receiver stuff just to consume sports content. It's like I'm not like a Vikings fan, so I don't care if Justin Jefferson's in it or not, but I like just to see like his lifestyle and all of that. And you see a lot of that as Dave, TJ, and Sean. And not to get too off the rails here, but that's something like I've tried to make a big emphasis on too, is like, if you're just a casual fan, most of the time that you see these guys, they're wearing helmets. You don't even see their faces, right? Like they're wearing helmets. Dave has a visor on. You can't even see his eyes. But I want to show what these people, like, not only what they look like, but who they are, right? And that's all in here. And then to kind of answer your second question, Cole, episode 1 and 2, they came out on Monday, so January 20th. Episode 3 and 4 will be coming out on January 27th. And then episode 5 and 6 are coming out on February 3rd. So to put that in easier terms, the next 2 Mondays, there'll be 2 episodes at a time. And then we'll wrap it up because that kind of starts at least in my opinion, the start of the 2025 season, right? Free agency's around the corner right after that. Rosters start to get, finalized. And then, like I said, off we go into 2025 and into the future.
Blake, any final questions for Nick before we get him out of here?
No, I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover. There was one quick one though, Nick. Have you mentioned 2025 already? Have you kind of started planning Arrow Up for 2025? Like, have you made your pitch yet, or are you waiting until this season is done?
Very preliminary right now. There hasn't, for example, there hasn't been players selected if we are to follow this path again. So that's something that will get tackled this spring. But yeah, it's something that you have to plan out before it happens. Like I said, for this edition, we started this in March and it's just concluding in February. So that's right there. It's pretty much 12 months, right? So it takes time to produce, but after this is all put out and made public, the series launches and all of that, you start to plan for what's next. And like I was talking about earlier, the quality of the production is something we're always striving to be better at. So that's something that that's one of my top priorities right now, is to make sure that we make this as strong as possible. Another point too is that we have a brand new regime here, right? Ryan Rigmaiden and Buck Pierce are now the GM and the head coach, and got to build the relationships with them, right? Luckily Ryan Rigmaiden's been here the last couple of years, so you've got to been able to build a rapport with him. But it takes trust to be able to do this, right? And to get that access. So that's something that starts right when the off season starts for us. So, I can tell you that if you're a Lions fan, we won't let you down.
I lied, Nick. One last question. You just piqued my interest there with who you just mentioned, and that being the new regime, Buck Pierce, Ryan Rigmaiden. How excited are you for them to be a part of the BC Lions? Obviously, being a Winnipeg kid and watching Buck Pierce growing up, I would imagine is pretty cool. But how excited are you just overall for them and kind of the direction they're going to take the team here in 2025?
Oh, super excited. Ryan Rigmaiden, he texted me Merry Christmas. He's such a personable guy, such a likable person, makes you feel like part of the team essentially, right? So the texting me Merry Christmas is a good example, but he's been great to work with. He pitches me ideas sometimes. He's all about all this stuff too. He loves it. I mean, he's told me he shares this with different prospects at times too. So that makes me very proud that I can help in any capacity. And then of course with Coach Buck Pierce, I mean that's exciting, right? To get a guy from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers staff too is nothing, can't be anything but good, right? And to see what he's done with that offense the last couple of years, The passion he has for this league. Like at his introductory press conference, I was getting like chills just hearing him talk about like what the Lions team is going to look like, and them talking about like mental toughness and grit and accountability and all those things like that. That gave me chills. It felt like I was ready to strap the pads on for Coach Pierce. But excited to see what this all entails. Like Nathan O'Rourke's in place, Buck Pierce is in place. Like it's exciting times to be a Lions fan, right? It feels like the start of something special here, and it's not going to be a short-term thing. It's going to be a long-term thing, and that's what excites me too. So, really excited to see what kind of direction this team takes for this year and beyond.
Lastly, Nick, let the people know where they can find all your work on social media and where they can find Arrow Up as well.
Yeah, I'll start with Arrow Up because that's what's all that's on my mind right now. So you just type in, it's on the BC Lions YouTube page, which is @official BC Lions. If you just type in Arrow Up though on YouTube, you'll find it. It'll pop up. But yeah, we're calling this series Home Turf, so maybe type in Arrow Up Home Turf or just go to the BC Lions YouTube page, and the first 2 episodes are out right now. And again, like I was talking about at the top, a lot of my work exists on the BC Lions social channels, right? So that's @BC Lions on Twitter, obviously, and then BC Lions official on Instagram. My Twitter is Nik_Kowalski. So I got that going on right now. We're still you guys call it Twitter or X?
Twitter,
yeah, I still call it Twitter.
Always so Twitter.
Gotta break that. Got Blue Sky now too. I haven't really been posting on Blue Sky, but I've been lingering around, checking it out there too. So, but yeah, my main message right now is just go check out Arrow Up. I don't think you'll be disappointed. You'll probably be a fan of Sean White, TJ Lee, and David Mackey after watching it too. So, just would mean a lot just for anyone listening to go check that out, and leave your thoughts too. You can comment on the YouTube videos. I always like reading the comments, good or bad. So yeah, appreciate all the support.
Awesome, buddy. Thank you. Thank you to everybody at the BC Lions as well. You guys keep killing it, like I said. Thank you to yourself, Baker, Liam. I know a few people that I've built relationships. You guys have all been very helpful to me and very accepting just for me being around last season a little bit. But anyways, Nick, hopefully we'll chat later in the off season, man. And thanks for joining tonight.
Awesome. Appreciate it, fellas. Take it easy. And we'll cross paths soon enough.
Yes. Later, Nick. That was Nik Kowalski, manager of digital media for the BC Lions. Blake, that was a good one. That was what we're gonna Blake. We're not gonna officially group this with the podcast series. What we're gonna call this, we're gonna go behind the lens with Nik Kowalski. Is what we're gonna go with. So, heard a little bit about Nick's story behind the lens, and as well as Arrow Up. Blake, did you enjoy that one, buddy?
Yeah, no, that was a good one. I know I missed the very beginning. I had some stuff I had to take care of, but yeah, that was awesome. I mean, you said it just before we let Nick go there, that him and Liam and him and Matt Baker, to be specific, like no disrespect to Liam, but I know that I haven't interacted with Liam very much yet, but Nick and Matt Baker have both been so kind and so helpful to both yourself and myself, and I mean, pretty much anything that we ask for, they, within reason, we will put that little disclaimer there, but anything we ask for within reason, they've been pretty accommodating to guys like you and myself.
Very much so, and they make it very easy to be a fan and to root for this team. So, Blake, I think that'll do it for the video, buddy. You guys can see us once again. Should be uploading episode 35 of the podcast here shortly. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, we have episode 34 out already with BC Lions receiver Javon Catoy. Had a great time catching up with Javon, and as Blake said, the BC Lions have been very accommodating to our requests. So hopefully, we make another one for a player in the future. If you guys would like to let your feelings be known, comment down below who you guys would like to see here on the channel. I know I personally have a few ideas. I'm sure Blake does as well, but we will save that for a later date. Blake, any final thoughts for the people before we get out of here?
No, it's just thanks for sticking with us throughout the holidays. I know that you Cole did a exquisite job of getting those off-season primers recorded and pumped out before Christmas and New Year's. I know I was there for a couple of them, not all of them, but you did an amazing job of getting all 9 teams. And you and I, we have a lot of plans for this upcoming season, and free agency is going to be right around the corner, and that's kind of where you and I hit the ground running last year. That's where we plan on hitting the ground running this year, and even bigger and better than last year. So stay tuned. We're going to have some fun this year.
I was just going to mention free agency. That negotiation window is coming, Blake. I'm very, very excited. As I've been mentioning on our little weekly show group chat, patiently waiting for Justin McInnes re-signing, but hopefully that's coming in the coming days. Lastly,
yeah, but
Blake,
we re-signed a receiver today, Andrew Pearson.
yeah, the weapon X for the BC Lions. Very good to see Andrew re-signed. But lastly, Blake, as always, buddy, you know what we have to do. Like, comment, smash the subscribe button. I know you're doing it behind the camera. When you guys subscribe, please press the notification bell. You guys will get notified every single time Blake and I go live or upload any content here on the channel. That'll do it for today's video, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.